Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 691 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, all of the founding fathers of chapters that I know, all of these guys end up being super successful in life. There is something about that process of building a brand new chapter and setting up all of the bylaws, the constitution, the systems, the processes. All of those things is the secret sauce that creates incredible business leaders all throughout every niche, every industry that you can imagine. And our next guest is exactly that, absolutely spectacular. Marc Dumas is finishing up his term as national president of Phi Kappa Psi Fraternity and 8 years on the national board of directors. He was a colony and chapter founding father. He was president of the Greek Council on campus, and he's also the first Black president of Phi Kappa Psi Fraternity. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I am doing great, even better knowing that you're here. I know you're a little bit tired today after a week at convention, so I super appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for sharing all of the photos, the videos online. I've enjoyed every single bit.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. And there'll be some more. As you know, going to convention means that you have to take some time to decompress. And I have far too many photos. And so one of the things, my plan is by the end of the week to give that long post that all national past presidents give, telling you how great it was and how much they loved it and all the things. And then also, I'm probably going to post my final speech. So you'll be able to watch that too.
That'd be great. I'd really enjoy watching that final speech and listening to your final words as national president. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. So I will be the first person to watch that and share that widely because I know that your comments and your insight is extremely valuable considering all of your experience. But let's start in the beginning because you didn't just join a fraternity. You helped to build one from the ground up where there was nothing. So what inspired you to become a colony founding father rather than just joining an established chapter on campus that was already there?
So let's talk about it from this perspective. Remember, it's 1991. There's no internet. There's barely computers. And, I go through what was then, Rush was literally part of DePaul's org fair. It wasn't like separate like it is in a lot of places. It was just part of it. And I went through as a freshman, didn't like anything I saw. Plus, my parents, neither one of my parents went to college. So fraternity to me, honestly, the only piece of fraternity I had was watching the movie School Days and maybe Revenge of the Nerds. Both of those things. So I went through the first year, didn't see anything I liked. And I went and got involved in residence hall life and became a residence hall president. And I was an ROTC and did all these things. So I go through the second year. This year, I meet some people that I know, like, and trust. And they end up being the guys that helped found the colony with me. They all hated it. They didn't like what they saw as well. There was at the time, only one national fraternity on campus. The other groups were local. All the sororities were part of the NPC, but all the men's groups weren't. And they rushed by throwing as much beer as they could at you. And that wasn't me at the time. And so, I like a good beer now and then, but I wasn't my end all be all of life. And so we're like, we should start our own. And so we walked into the student life office. I'll never forget this day as long as I live. I walked in the student life office and said, "Hi, you want to start a fraternity? What do we do?" And they handed me a copy of Baird's. That's right. For those of you out there that don't know what Baird's is, or you do know, it's a big, giant encyclopedia-like book with every college fraternity in the country in it. And we sent out letters to all of those groups asking that we wanted to start an organization and what can we do. So we sent out like 88 letters. I know because I wrote most of them. That 88 went down to 50, like in terms of coming back, like correspondence back and forth, down to 25, down to 4. The 4 were, and this is why this is kind of funny, were SAE and Sigma Chi and ATO and Phi Psi. Now, if you know anything about Greek life, you know that SAE and Sigma Chi are both headquartered in Evanston, Illinois. It's an L ride. They could have literally got on the L and taken the L a half hour to DePaul and said, "Hi, we'd like to do this." And they didn't. Okay. I give presidents of both those organizations grief all the time about it. ATO just said no. And then Phi Psi sent a guy, the director of chapter services at the time, sent one of his consultants to Chicago, and he knocked on my door one morning and he's like, "Are you Marc Dumas?" I'm like, "I am." He's like, "I'm S. Michael Wallen from Phi Kappa Psi. I hear you want to start a fraternity." And I literally got on the phone tree, again, things that kids don't know what they are anymore, and said, this guy in a suit and a ponytail is at my front door, but he wants to talk to us. So we went and we met with him, and we talked to him, and we like, I guess we're gonna be Phi Psis. And that's how the colony process started for us. It took us 2 years to go from being a colony to getting our charter. And then there we go. I got to go to my first convention in the middle of that. And at that convention, I literally kind of was like, wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. And the lore has it, and I've had it confirmed by multiple people now, so it has to be true, that I walked up to someone and said, one day I'm going to be president of the National Fraternity. And that's a really bold thing to say when you're 20-year-old, 21-year-old black kid from Chicago in this sea full of white guys. But here we are. And here we are.
Man, that is what a story. I mean, what a story. That's absolutely incredible. I'm so happy that we got that on tape for future generations to listen to because that's just awesome. I'm wondering, looking back at it, you talked a little bit, I mean, in a sentence, that there was this 2-year process of going from a colony to a full-fledged chapter, and you went to convention in that time. But talk to us about some of the big lessons that you learned from building this fraternity culture instead of just joining one of the locals or the other national fraternity on campus. What did you learn in that 2-year process of building a chapter?
So the positives were you learn how to lead, right? You learn how to lead quickly because there was a very small framework. Like we know what the officers are, and you can read the manual and tells you what the officers should be doing. But fraternity chapters are like franchises, right? And I use this term all the time. Like some fraternities, their franchises are like Chick-fil-A. Everything's the same everywhere. Phi Psi back then was like McDonald's in the 70s. Like, yeah, I can give you a Big Mac. I can even give you Coke and fries. But depending on where I am in the country, it's very different. And so it taught me to lead really fast. Um, it taught us to understand, set a standard and live to it. Like if we didn't like, we made it our business that this is what we were going to be about. And if someone did fit that, we were going to ask them to join us, right? The beauty of a colony in the 90s was that the rules weren't like they are now. Like we would literally look at your grades and look at your things and say yes or no before you even pledged. It wasn't like, let's run them through pledging and see if it works. It was like, no, it's like he's either going to be a good person or not. Because on the same side, there's nothing to keep you, there's nothing binding you there yet, right? You haven't taken an oath. You can go join an oath. You can do all the things. I also would tell you that have a good time, but also know everyone's watching you. And some people are hoping that you fail. Some people are definitely hoping that you aren't going to do this. And when that happens, you have to sit there and go, okay, because there's times that you're sometimes it's literally uh, drinking water through a fire hose. It's just coming at you so hard with so many things, and you're like, and I was never the chapter president or the colony president. In fact, I ran for president once. I was the corresponding secretary, which is the number 3 man in the chapter. I ran for president after my term as Greek council president and lost spectacularly. Like it was because I came in, I was like, and it was right after we gotten approved to get our charter. And I was like, great. Because I was the one who did all the charter work. I'm like, great. I'm going to be president now. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. And the chapter would hold my beer. No, you're not. And so, and it's funny because the two guys, the president and vice president that became the first chapter president and vice president, were smart enough to go, okay, you're not going to be in charge of putting this whole shebang together and planning all the events and all the things for that week. So that worked out. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that they kept you involved because your leadership was certainly needed. And I think it also furthers the point that everybody is a leader in the chapter. You don't need a title to
Right.
lead the chapter. I mean, it could just be a general member. And we all know, by the way, we all know really good leaders that are really have no title. And we also know leaders that have a title that are terrible leaders, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
know both, right? So let's not, put too much on the title because I've seen both extremes to be quite honest with you. And I'm
Right.
sure you have too, over time in various chapters. I'm curious about your time as Greek Council president because, you just kind of gloss over it like, yeah, I was Greek Council president. But I'm wondering, what did that role teach you about leading people all over campus that obviously everyone has a different opinion and everybody has a different priority depending on what chapter you're in. So what was that like, and what did that teach you?
First thing it taught me is that just because we all wear Greek letters, we're not singing it out of the same hymnal, right? Um, Clearly, just the perfect example, the NPC groups and the NPHC groups work very differently than NIC groups. And therefore, you have to manage all of those rules and regs and people. We weren't at a space yet at DePaul. We weren't big enough to have a college Panhellenic or a NPHC organization to itself. It was all one in the 90s. It was all one mishmash. And so we had to, deal with that in terms of recruitment. We had to deal with that in terms of how you rent parties and what insurance looks like. Um, you know, a lot of the NPHC groups, for example, back then didn't carry insurance. And they also didn't have their parties like in people's houses. They would have them in the student center and it'd be a thing, right? And so you had to learn to deal with all of that. You had to learn to manage other people's expectations of what Greek life was supposed to be on that campus. Um, Student life office wanted us to like really set really high grades. And you're like, well, you don't set high grades for everybody else. Like I get into these conversations with the dean and the president of the university about I I will accept the idea that we say out loud that we're supposed to be better and we're supposed to hold ourselves to a higher standard. But that higher standard can be so high that it's different than being in the judo club. That's not fair. Fun fact, totally not about my time back then, but the current president of DePaul is a Phi Psi. Not only is he a Phi Psi, remember I told the story about the director of chapter services sending the guy? He's that guy's roommate.
Wow.
And we just gave him the National Leadership Award. So I knew he was a Phi Psi, but I'd never met him. So this weekend at convention, I had met him for the first time. All the chapter met him for the first time. And we've gone now from him not wanting to be involved because he wanted to kind of stay away to now wanting to be involved and take an active, not so much an active role, but like a role in helping the chapter keep moving.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool thing.
That's a very cool thing. We need to get more people on campus, more higher ed folks amongst our midst in any fraternity or sorority on campus. I think that's really, really important. And by the way, as undergraduates, you have a tool, and that tool is called alumni initiation. Okay. If these folks that are helping your fraternities or sororities, men or women on your college campus, that they've never joined a college fraternity or sorority, that is the perfect opportunity to get them initiated and get them to lead the university from the inside as a brother or a sister of your organization. Okay.
Right.
That is the
Right.
tool you have. And I think that is a very underutilized tool that we have in order to make our campuses a little bit more fraternity and sorority friendly.
That's my next project now that I'm not on the board is to we're working on that in Phi Sci to talk about alumni initiation, both for men like that, men and women like that, and also for parents.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot, there's lots of first gens now who are going to school whose parents did not go to college, or when they went to college did not join a fraternity.
Right.
And how great would it be to do that with your son or do that with your dad?
That's a great initiative. And boy, oh boy, if I could have been pinned by my dad in initiation,
Right.
the tears would have been coming down. I
Yeah.
mean, that is a moment that I'm sure my dad, would never forget.
Yeah. I mean,
So boy, oh boy, that would be powerful.
and it's wild because it came from convention. You probably saw the video of us singing around the big circle.
I did.
And if you look at the guy to the person to my left, that's my son,
Mhm.
who's not a member yet,
Yep.
but he's been going to chapter since he was a baby. So he knows the words. So he got in the circle with us and he sang. I made it the entire time of over a week of not crying. I cried Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that. I'd be crying like a baby in the
Right,
fetal position if I
right,
would have seen that. Because I listen, I got a son, and he's 21 now. He's already in a master's program, so like
right.
he's already like gone beyond. He was in undergrad for 2.5 years with a 4.0 GPA in grad school.
Wow,
So
wow.
like that's the type of kid this kid is. And so yeah, I mean, if I was in that scenario like you just described, because we also at the end of convention, we all get in a circle and we all sing the song together.
Right,
And that's how
right,
we end convention. So I understand how powerful that moment is, but to have your son next to you singing the words, that's it. Waterfalls are
right.
coming down. Like you can't control it. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And you'll remember that, I'm sure, for the rest of your life. There's no question. I'm wondering because you've completed 8 years on Phi Si's board of directors, which is a huge feat. And I'm wondering how your definition of leadership has changed from your undergraduate days as a Phi Psi on a local campus to now running the entire fraternity.
To a couple ways. So first off, being an undergraduate leader is 90% reactive and 10% proactive. I'd like in a perfect world, I'd probably like to be half and half, right? It's like as I was running things, I was always telling my undergraduates, I would like them to be like half and half. There's things you have to do just because that's how kids are. It's like we're not gonna lie and say kids are special and perfect, but that's how they are. Um, at the national level, it's probably the flip, right? It's 90% proactive and 10% reactive. The reactive is, oh no, chapter X has gone and done something dumb. And and then you start doing reaction terms like, has the news got it yet? Has this happened yet? Has that happened yet? Versus really what you're doing most of the time is strategic planning, right? You are sitting down and figuring out what fraternity, what is, I talk about in terms of Phi Psi 2052 look like, right? That will be our bicentennial. What should the fraternity of 20 of 200 years of this look like for us? I would not be here to see it. In fact, I know most of the people won't be, but what should it look like in terms of what are we doing for our undergraduates? What are we doing for our alumni, right? Let's talk about the fact that um, alumni, your alumni experience in the fraternity is the longest period experience that you have. Yet most of our groups, unfortunately, give this much work to it, and they give all of this work to the 4 years that you're in school. Do we need to flip that? I don't know yet. That's part of the plan, right? But we definitely need to get them closer to equal in terms of the kind of programming that we do, in terms of the kind of um, love we give to those men, because especially alums are going through life. They're building families, starting jobs, having children, getting divorced, unfortunately, getting sick, unfortunately, and we know that men are lonely. We know that men don't really make new friends after like 27, 28. So how do we do with that? How can we help with that? Right? How can we help with that? And so that's kind of what I've been looking at and we've been talking about in terms of the difference between being an undergraduate leader. And I got a chance to talk to lots of undergraduate leaders at convention this year. Like, normally, especially when you're running for office, you don't talk to them. You kind of talk at them. You kind of give them your elevator pitch as to why you should be X. This year, it was more like, you tell me why you're doing what you're doing and what you like about it. And let's help to figure it out together. But those are the things they even talk about. They're like, what happens when I graduate? I'm now going to have this support system that I've had for 4 years. And in some places, that support system is 300 men deep to now being on my own. And I hope my pledge brothers call me. I hope I'm still in the group chat. But what do I do if I'm not? What do I do if I move to a place that's really far away from the chapter I went to? Like, how do I get in touch with the alumni association? How do I get in touch with people? How do I find a mentor? Like all these things. And that's kind of what happens in the difference between the 4 year experience versus the 40-year experience.
Yeah, well said. I think one of the worst days for me as executive director of the fraternity was when you had to close a chapter. There's nothing that I like about that. It's and contrary to popular belief, I mean that's a failure.
Right.
That's the worst thing that can happen is having to close a chapter because they're not doing what the fraternity expects of them and what those men promised to do. So I'm sure as national president, you had to make some unpopular decisions along the way. So I'm wondering, how do you balance doing what's right by the fraternity versus doing what's popular?
What I said was in my notes to you, and I say it out loud, always do what's right and it will become popular. Yeah, we had to, so we chartered 9 new schools over the biennium. We lost 7. So that's a net 2. So in some ways, hey, it's a net positive. Great. But I was really sad that we lost the 7. And of the 7 we lost, almost all of them, well, 6.5, because one's still pending. All the ones we lost were because of hazing. And all of them were because of people doing dumb things and not living their oath, right? Um, and I can blame the undergraduates for that, but just as easily, I'm gonna blame every level of this, from the alumni to me to everybody, because at some point, no one really sold them on the idea or convinced them that the oath that you take is important. It's not just a couple words you say with your hand on the Bible and your hand up in the air. If you believe, like, you should not do this if you don't believe this, right? I'm sure your fraternity does it. There's a spot in my ritual where you can back out and go, this isn't for me. I've watched it happen, right? I've even tried to talk someone off that ledge to no avail. It was actually the best thing for them. But you have to, if you believe it, you have to believe it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'd certainly be more than happy to be a part of the solution. I was hazed during my initiation, and I remember thinking to myself, like, there's got to be a better way than this. There's got to be a better way. And this seems to be in conflict with all of the things that I'm promising right now as I raise my right hand. Like, that
Right.
wasn't lost on me, even as an 18-year-old. I'm like, wait a minute, we're promising to do all of these things. And then I'm being hazed. And that was such a pivotal moment for me as an 18-year-old that I spent my entire career researching hazing prevention to figure out how do we remove it from not only fraternities and sororities, but also from athletics, from the band, from ROTC, like you
Right.
talked about. I mean, all the things. I mean, this is human phenomenon. This is not just something that fraternities and sororities invented. This has been going on since the beginning of time, since cavemen, and it's all over the world. It's not just like a United States phenomenon. So, I'd certainly like to be a part of the solution, and I understand your frustration.
Yeah. I do too. One of the things that I really want to figure out with that is how do we build a rite of passage that is fun, challenging, not just glossed over, yet is also some sort of crucible, right? Because I think especially young men need something to get them to bond together that we did this together, right? I don't need you to, and I'm going to be like, I don't need you to do some of the things that we hear about and you hear about them to bond together, but I need you to start doing something so that when you go through it, and that it builds 2 things. It builds an idea that the pledge class is in unity, but it also makes you part of the bigger circle,
Yeah,
right? I think what happens right now is whatever is happening on these campuses, it's about pledge class unity. And then you join the organization and it's pledge class versus, like, it's almost there's 4 different groups running a chapter at the same time.
that's right. And that's not useful. That's not helpful to become the best chapter with 4 clicks in your organization.
Right.
And you're right. The research actually shows that, especially in IFC organizations, these men are looking to essentially go through some ordeal. When they join a fraternity. And if they don't get that, some of them are looking elsewhere, that they're going to be willing to go through a tougher challenge in order to earn their man card, if for lack of a better word. And so I absolutely agree with you, and so much so that today I started working with the hazingprevention.org and the Hazing Prevention Network in order to bring a program right around National Hazing Prevention Week online that anybody can join. And we're going to talk about that. And the title that I came up with is, okay, you want me to stop hazing, and what am I going to replace it with?
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's the title, right? Let's talk about that.
Exactly.
So I think we're getting closer to finding a solution for you, and we'll bring that to the Hazing Prevention Network in September. So I'm excited about that. You became the first Black national president in Phi Kappa Psi's history. So again, I don't want to gloss over that. I think that is a really important moment in the history of the fraternity. What did that milestone mean to you personally?
I will tell you, it was pretty awesome. It was, I will, without naming names, there were times in which when I was a young undergraduate or when I was a young alum, so to give you a reference point, I've been to every convention of my fraternities since that time as a colony member in 1992. So this year was my 17th convention. I've been the Order of SC, which is a fraternity within the fraternity that celebrates the fact that we've gone to at least seven. And there are times where I was really nervous that people wouldn't let me into that group because I didn't know what the rules were. Come to find out, it's far easier than I think it looks. But it was an amazing moment for me to let it wash over. And I'm going to tell a quick story to help understand it. As we know, most NIC and NIC adjacent fraternities at some point in their lives did not let people of color in their organizations. We can acknowledge that. We know that that's an evil stain, like it is on most of the country about most of the things. Phi Psi never had documents ever saying that, but in 1948, our chapter at Massachusetts Amherst tried to initiate a man named by the name of Thomas Gibbs, who was Black. They wanted to initiate him. Um, Back then, the unit rule that we used for initiation said that any member of any chapter can go and say no. Um, Someone showed up and said no. It then came to the convention in 48, and they kept going back and forth about it and trying to come up with excuses and the social mores of the day and all these kinds of things. And they told the chapter to not initiate him when they went back home to Massachusetts. The chapter did anyway, and immediately the charter was revoked. If anyone knows who Doug Daniel is in fraternity sorority land, and I'm sure you probably do if you're a little older, he's Mr. Phi Psi forever until he passed away. His first job as assistant executive director was to go get that charter. Um, so Thomas Gibbs doesn't join. We don't initiate a Black man until the 60s, it's like 64 at Dartmouth. We don't have a Black man start a colony until 74 in Akron. And then kind of bounces around. But more importantly, the Thomas Gibbs piece is important because of this for me. So 48 happens. After this whole thing happens, the fraternity sends out a straw poll to all its chapters across the country and says, give us your thoughts, right? And so the chapter in Illinois Delta, goes and votes like 135-2 to not let Black people in. Again, unofficially, because it's nowhere in the books that says you can't. One of the two was a man by the name of Prentice Marshall. Prentice Marshall was from Oak Park, Illinois, so a suburb of Chicago. He had served in the Navy with Black people. He had played basketball and sports with Black people. And he was like, this is crazy. And so he doesn't pay any mind to it. Later on, while he's in law school, Illinois, he's like, I'm still a member. I still pay dues. So he went to lunch at the chapter house, and someone said something out of pocket to him, and he vowed he would never go back. Fast forward a few years, he becomes a law professor, starts one of the biggest law firms in the country, and then gets appointed to the federal bench. Here's where the story happens. He had a courtroom deputy, a minute clerk, that happened to be my mother. I grew up in Judge Marshall's courtroom. My mother took me to court with her in the summertime all the time. The stories I could tell about that alone is a whole different podcast. The people I saw, let's just say I met Muhammad Ali when I was like 5 years old.
Wow.
I met Tony Accardo, who was the head of the Chicago mob, when I was 8 years old. Like the stories are nuts. But so I grew up in this man's courtroom, never knowing he was a fraternity man. Um, Knew he was really big in Illinois, but never knew anything about that. So when the colony starts, we're in the Shield. We're in the national magazine. There's a picture. There's me. I'm the guy writing the story. He sees it because he still gets it because we don't tell you how to quit. No one tells you how to quit, right? You can disaffiliate, but no one tells you how to really quit. So he sees it and he sends me a letter on his stationery in this script that you can't read unless you know how to read it because it's like kids today would literally be like, "This is hieroglyphics. What is this?" And where he tells me he's a Phi Psi, tells me this story and how he has to go back. He tells me all this and then says, I'm going to send you something for your initiation. Doesn't tell me what it is. So, you're executive director. You know that when you do a new chartering, you give everyone a blank because you want them to have something. You give them a blank. So this happens, go through everything, go through initiation. And the national, at the time, national treasurer, who became a national president, who's from Illinois Delta, walks up to me and goes, Mark, this is from Judge Marshall, and it's his badge.
Wow.
It's his badge.
Wow.
I go to the banquet that night. My father's there. My mother unfortunately had passed away, but my father's there because we invited all the parents. And I literally walk up to him. My father at the time was 69. I walk up to him with a magnifying glass and lights so he can read the back of this badge. And he's like, why does you have Prentice Marshall? He goes, why do you have Judge Marshall's badge? Because he sent it to me, Daddy. And I kind of sat there crying because I was like, I know you were really worried. My parents were deathly worried about me doing this.
Yeah.
Give you some context. Before my mother worked for this judge, my mother was a freedom rider. My father's the first black postal inspector, United States postal inspector in the country. They were, I should say, they were quiet rebels, right? They never other than my mother getting on a bus and doing that, they weren't out there, protesting and picketing, but they were definitely doing the work. And so I came home and go, look at this. And my dad looked at me, he goes, wow, they actually do care about you. But he had some wild conversations that night with people at that banquet. He was also concerned that they drank far too much. But, um, the old men, not the students, the old men. And so I have that badge. When the judge passed away, I put my badge in the casket with him, saying, well, they need to know, the Archon needs to know that he's one of us when he gets there. And so his wife literally sent me all of his bow ties. And so if you've known me, you see me, you know I wear bow ties all the time. That's where it started. And so, yeah, so I have to go actually make myself a new badge so I can keep Judge's badge and give my son my badge when he joins the fraternity one day. And so I got to go through all that. But yeah, so it's really personal to me. Every time I've gotten up and having to run for office and given a speech, I've talked about those two moments. But what happened to Thomas Gibbs and what happened to me. And in my last speech, I talked about it in terms of 80 years ago, we made a mistake. The arc of history always bends towards justice. We're now at a place where here I am, and there are men in this room. When I went to my first convention, there was one other black person there. There were probably 25 to 30 here, and understanding that there might be more out there just who aren't officers of their chapters. We've come a long way. Have we come all the way? No, but we've come a long way. So it was really, really moving for me.
Man, that's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, as Dr. King has said before, it's always a good time to do the right thing.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just Phi Psi. I think it's every fraternity. I mean, certainly in my fraternity, I have the old pledge book that talked about white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and I happen to be Jewish.
Right.
So that means that my guys were not allowed in the 1930s. And thank goodness that there were men that stood up at our convention in the 30s and just said, hey, we want to initiate Jewish men in the chapter. And that's where it starts. It starts at the local chapter and then permeates through the organization. And eventually they changed that bylaw and allowed all men, which is how it should be. But it's just interesting to note that, that at some point, hey, I wouldn't have gotten a bid to join the organization because of that bylaw. So I guess the question becomes, I'm sure that there are men like you on college campuses that look at a chapter like a Phi Psi and basically say, I don't see myself represented in this organization. So I'm going to go elsewhere. So for those students from underrepresented backgrounds who may not see themselves in the chapter, in leadership, what advice would you give them?
So there's a duality there, right? So there are times when we both acknowledge this that, especially being black or brown, you might have been in situations in your entire life where you've been around nothing but black and brown people, and maybe this might be too big of a hurdle for you to climb. Luckily, there's organizations that can help you and join with them. I think every young man, with rare exceptions, should join fraternity. Little F. Like there's a place for everybody,
Yeah.
right? Um, if you have lived a life where, as my father would have said to me, where white people don't scare you, and you're not thinking immediately that they're out to get you, the NIC might not be a bad place for you, right? For me, it wasn't about the NIC or the NPC or whatever. It was simply the guys I lived with all went through recruit. We all went through recruitment and hated it. We all then said, let's start something. My colony has people of every kind of thing in it. It's the United Nations, or as we used to say back then, a Benetton ad. Right, you're old enough to remember Benetton,
Yeah.
and so it's a Benetton ad. And so I would tell those people, uh, if you're a leader, water finds its own level, and more importantly, if you're a leader, leaders lead. And so if you want to go be a leader, um, go through recruitment. I tell people, everyone, to go through recruitment, all the recruitment you can, right? Obviously, the NPHC handles recruitment a little differently, and therefore it's a little harder to like see all the groups, but definitely go through an IC recruitment and see the people and find the people that like are like you, right? If you like to play a lot of golf and there's guys in the chapter that they're all golfers, that's your fit. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, right? There's groups for that. There's things, um, and listen to what they're saying to you as you're going through the process, right? As you're going through the process, it's not enough for you to say, I want to do X. It's enough. You have to also say, they're telling me X plus what? So they're telling me this is the things that they do. This is how much it costs. This is how much time commitment you're asking for. You might be, in biomedical engineering, and you don't have 4 hours a day to go hang out at the chapter house because you're in the lab. Then that place is not for you. There is somewhere that is for you. You just got to figure out what it is. That's what I would tell those young black and brown people. Like I laugh. There's a running joke in the fraternity right now. Alabama, our chapter in Alabama has a young man in it, a young African American man whose last name is Dumas. We are not related, even though when he was pledging and he was meeting with the chapter advisor every week, he told the chapter advisor, he's like, yeah, that's my dad. The national president is my father. And the chapter advisor is a friend of mine who has met my son. He goes, are you sure? And he kept giving him enough rope, and then they put him on a Zoom call. It's like, that's your dad? Because Mark Robbins, the chapter advisor, has a picture of Mark and my son together on his mantle. Because that's not you. So who the hell are you? And we get on a Zoom call. I'm like,
I've never seen you before.
right, who's this? And so yeah, so it's been kind of funny.
That's
Um, but yeah, I think everyone can find a space.
Yeah, totally agree. One of the things I see that undergraduates are struggling with right now is accountability. They can't hold their brothers accountable to doing what we promised to do when we raised our right hand and we stood on the altar and said all of those things. They can't hold them accountable. They just can't. They'd rather shy away from that difficult conversation rather than have the difficult conversation. So,
Right.
in your opinion, what does accountability have to do with this brotherhood?
Everything. Um, my touch phrase for the last 2 years and moving forward has been, fraternity. You can just easily replace brotherhood, is advanced friendship, and we're in the friendship business. You swore an oath. Hold each other. Part of that oath is to hold each other accountable for the good things that they do and also the things that aren't so good. And it's hard for kids today to understand that because in a lot of ways they haven't been held accountable because they've always had outs. They've always had ways to get, like, there's always been an escape hatch. But it's also really brotherly. And that's the thing too, I think has happened is that as fraternity has gotten corporate, right? And it's a necessary evil to be corporate. We even walk away from using the term brother instead of member, right? Brotherhood means that I'm going to hold you accountable. Brotherhood means that when I see you acting stupid, I'm not going to just look at it and go and walk away. I'm going to go, hey, you got to stop doing that. It might be that I'm not going to publicly embarrass you because that's also part of accountability, right? It's not to just embarrass you for the sake of embarrassing you, but I'm going to hold you accountable. If it means I have to take you in front of the standards board, so be it. If it means that I have to, if I'm a leader and I see it, I have to then, give you whatever. Or if let's make it really simple, not even stupid things. Your grades are suffering because of us. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting us at the same time. So let's find a path for you to help yourself and help us. And I think that's a piece of the accountability that no one talks about is that we have to make it so that everyone understands it's not just about you, right? We've gotten to this generation of getting your bag and not worrying about the greater collective. It's the collective that needs your help. And because we need your help, we have to hold you accountable.
Well said. We're in the fraternity business, like you called it, and fraternities have been around a long time. We're talking about well over a century here. And so there's always this balance between tradition and current day staying relevant, right? Because we are so old, we like to continue the same traditions over 100 years, but also you need to evolve. I think there's a part of this that says, is this still relevant today? Is
Right.
fraternity still relevant? And many people say fraternities need to evolve in order to stay relevant because things change. So, what absolutely should change and what should never change about fraternity?
So the easy one of which should never change is the idea that we are all, if groups choose to be, they are single sex organizations. I think there's something to be said about being in a room with your brothers without anyone else there, be able to talk about the things that are important to men. Um, and do that in a way that does not cause misogyny, and do that in a way that is caring and understanding and forgiving. Because the outside world tells these young men, especially, that they're not supposed to cry, that they're not supposed to, show emotion. Well, you got to show it somewhere because if you don't, you blow up, right? And so here's a place for that. I think we should never change is the idea that this is one of the greatest leadership laboratories in the world. That is a byproduct of the friendship piece, but there you go. What should change? We talked about it a little bit earlier. We have to come up with a new way to go through a rite of passage so it's not hazing. It also gives them something that they can look forward to, and also they can understand that it's going to be a little hard. You need a little pressure. I don't need pressure to make diamonds, but I definitely need pressure to make you understand this is important. Because when you don't think it's important, you just don't you take it for granted and you just go. And then bad things happen. I would also say that that's the biggest one that should change. We got to find that. We have to find that, right? And it's got to be fast. And it doesn't have to be the same for every group out there, but it should all look sort of the same. Um, I think in some ways we need to go back. A lot of people have kind of pushed away from the idea that you should learn your fraternity and your chapter's history. Like, I think that's actually really important because it helps understand. Like, context matters,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we need to know that we used to haze things and why how that went poorly. We also need to know here's the new thing.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And listen, joining a fraternity is just like having a class on campus.
Right.
They get a syllabus, and these are the things that we're going to learn this semester. It's exactly the same thing. So I agree with you on the history. I think it's really important to understand our history if we are going to continue to stay relevant, give people things to think about as our future leaders. So I totally agree with you there. And we will come up with some things that are not mental or physical abuse but yet still a challenge. And I think that is the sweet spot. And so we're going to find that together, certainly in September. So I'm excited about that. Now, I'm just wondering, because you have all of this experience now, what advice would today's Mark give to the undergraduate Mark who is helping to found his own chapter?
Oh, wow. That one was the one actually I wrote down three things for
All
this.
right.
The first one, it's okay to be scared. because your brothers will have your back. Like if you believe in this and you believe that these men are in this with you, it's okay to be scared of the decisions that you make, and understanding that some of them might not be well received. It's okay to not know everything. You're starting something new. You don't know something. You can't possibly know everything or anything, really. You just gotta. It's no different than your first day in being in organic chemistry class. Like you're in the lab and they put the stuff out in front of you. You don't know what you're doing yet. That's why you read the stuff. And the last one, it's okay to be vulnerable, because that's what good men do.
Yep.
Good
Excellent
men
advice.
understand vulnerability.
Yep. Excellent advice. Now, we do love great food at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. That's my weakness, is really good food. And I sense that you know really good food too. And AFA is coming to Chicago in December, and I'm going to be speaking at AFA. So where should I go for a great meal when I get to Chicago in December?
Okay, so you saw the note that I sent you, but I'm going to say it this way, which is we're sitting here talking about this. What do you like to eat?
Well, certainly, I mean, the obvious Chicago choice is always going to be deep dish pizza, right?
Okay, so let's not get that. That's easy. I can
Yeah,
find you
that's like the
15 places of
obvious,
pizza.
right?
Right. I can find you, but what do you like? Like, what do you like? Not
Yeah,
what
I
do you
mean,
think we're good
normally
for? What do
for
you like?
me, like I'm a steak and potatoes guy. If I could find a really good steakhouse, I'd be really happy.
Okay, so then what you're gonna do, you're gonna go to Gibson's down on Rush Street. You're gonna go to Gibson's. You're gonna get whatever apps you want. There's a variety of them. I do like their shrimp cocktail because they're giant size.
Nice.
The cocktail sauce is not as hot as St. Elmo's, but it's still really good. Still
Okay.
keep the kitchen in the
St.
back.
Elmo's will punch you in the face.
Right. This is not. This might slap you. It won't punch you. You're gonna get the Chicago cut, medium rare plus. Side, you're gonna get a cream spinach, um, some sort of potato. If you got cream spinach, you don't need any other kind of thing. And maybe some mac and cheese. I'm biased to Gibson's because I've known the family forever. We went to the guys who are now running it and I went to high school together. I told them their mac and cheese needs to work, it needs a little work, and they tried to work on it a little bit. And then you're gonna have a, a great martini. You're gonna have their giant dessert that literally will give you enough for the entire time that you're here. If you go on the first night, you will eat dessert for 4 days because it's that big.
I
But
love
bring
it.
friends. Just bring friends,
Yeah.
or we can go together.
We can
Obviously,
go
I'll
together.
I'll
Absolutely.
be here. I will. We can go Gibson's and tear it up.
That sounds
And
good to
that's where I would
me.
go for one. If I had one meal,
Yeah.
steak and potatoes. But at the same time, if I had one meal like for lunch, everyone talks about hot dogs, and that's the sucker's bet. The real bet in Chicago is the Italian beef sandwich. And you get an Italian beef sandwich from Al's on Taylor Street, and you get it dipped with hot peppers.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, dipped with hot giardiniera. Um, and then if you do that, we'll go for that, and I'll show you the stance. If you
Nice.
want to see the stance, you can go on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives with Guy Fieri. He went to Al's once, and there's a stance you have where you have to get yourself enough room off of the counter so that when you eat the food, because it's messy, it falls in front of you and not on your shirt.
That's the trick. Don't
Right.
get dirty in the process.
Right. But there's
Well,
that. There's great tacos in Pilsen. Like I think Pilsen, Chicago has one of the largest Mexican communities in the country that no one knows about. And that because of that, the food is authentic and delicious. I love that. I'm not a breakfast guy that much, but I do love a good donut. I used to have a video series about uh donuts on Fridays, like during the pandemic. And so the Donut Vault, which isn't that far from your hotel, is really great. Yeah, and then a lot of these are winter places, all year places. There's some summer places as well that only like the Italian ice in Chicago is one of the greatest things ever, but you can't get it in the wintertime. Uh, Chinatown has amazing restaurants for dim sum, for just standard dishes. Um, Same with if you go to and these are places that are not necessarily close to your hotel, but public transportation in Chicago is great. So you can get there and get back. To go up north to the Vietnamese places for pho and Peking duck there's all of that. We have good Greek food. We have good everything food.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, there's no shortage of good food here for AFA. So all of
right,
these restaurants are going to be very happy that you're recommending them. So that way, everybody at AFA is going to go to have Al's and all of these
right.
things.
And then for pizza, right? And then let's talk about the truth, right? So we're here for the pizza and for deep dish.
Yeah,
So there's two schools of thought in Chicago, right? The one is that people in Chicago don't eat deep dish pizza unless tourists are in town with them and friends. That's not true. I eat deep dish pizza all the time. I love it.
sure.
But we also make really good thin crust pizza that for some reason someone has decided they had to name it, so they now call it tavern style. It's cracker thin. It's got great bite and great snap to it. There's a place, the place to go for that is a place called Pizza Michi, which is great for that. There's a couple other places, but for deep dish, I'm a fan of Lou Malnati's.
Yeah.
Lou's is now a chain all across the country, but Lou's here is amazing. You want to get the pizza with butter crust. Um, not too many, no more than three toppings, maybe four if you're like getting two veg and two meat, but that's it. Otherwise, it gets too heavy and the pizza doesn't hold. Understand that you're not eating it like this, you're eating it with a fork and knife. Um, and it's great. And then for those folks out there on your in your podcast that are like, for example, not doing carbs or not, they actually will make you a pizza where they use sausage as the crust.
There you go. There you go. Something for everybody, but I agree.
Right.
Luz is absolutely phenomenal. I am a New Yorker, so you have to understand I'm kind of like
Sure.
rolling over a little bit because when we talk about this stuff, it's like I know what like New York pizza is like, and then I go to Chicago and I'm like, this is a casserole. It's not really pizza. It's good,
Sure.
but it's a
Sure.
casserole.
Sure.
Let's just call it what it is.
I mean, but I also think that New York pizza is a piece of cardboard that happens to have a little flop to it and not enough cheese. But hey, we can agree to disagree
We can agree
and
to
like them
disagree.
both. I don't have a problem with like I don't go, oh my God, this is tasteless when I talk about New York pizza.
Right.
It's good. It's just not for me, right?
Right.
It's like same for you. I get it. I'm a born and raised Chicagoan.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that AFA was coming in the summertime because then I would have everyone take the architectural boat tour. Because even though it runs in the winter, why would you be on the lake in the wintertime or on the river?
Oh,
It's too
hell no.
cold for that.
No, it's way too cold for that. We're not going on the river, unfortunately. Well,
Right.
this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. So, if fraternity men who are listening to this, if they want to connect with you, they want to email you their questions, they want to connect with you, they want to see the photos, they want to see your speech at the convention, where should they go to connect with you and get all of this stuff?
So the easiest place is my Instagram and Facebook. I'm at Mas Dumas. So MASDUMAS pretty much covers all of my social media. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I don't really Twitter. Um, I go on Twitter to fight the troll other people, but I don't use it for like a real source of things. But yeah, those are the best places to get a hold of me. Or you can email me. Like I actually answer my email. Masdumas@gmail.com.
Masdumas at gmail.com or Masdumas on social media. Go and follow Mark because I tell you what, I am totally entertained by following his account and seeing all of the stuff that he's into. Can't wait to see that speech. I think that's going to be absolutely awesome. So I'm definitely going to tune in for that. But listen, thank you for everything that you've done, not just for Phi Psi, but for the entire fraternal movement. The work that you've done ever since you were, really a chapter leader all the way through in the IFC and then for Phi Psi nationally. I just think it's just absolutely incredible. It's an honor to spend time with you. And thank you for your service to the entire fraternal movement on behalf of every fraternity man in the country. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that a lot. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Mark and you learned something today, which listen, I learned 20 things today. So I'm sure you learned something. What I want you to do is share this episode, get the link, throw it into a group chat for your chapter so they can listen to what Mark is talking about. Share it on social media because you never know who needs to hear Mark's message today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.